All right, everybody, we are live. Moneyline MMA returning, coming off UFC 317 or 316. Excuse me, I'm looking too far ahead. 317 is coming up. UFC 316, in which Merab defended his belt against O'Malley successfully. Excuse me. We have a new women's bantamweight champion, Kayla Harrison. And wow, what an eventful post-fight scenario. I think Jose and I were talking about it, but he wasn't able to hear the sound. He was only watching. And Jose, I got to tell you, like, being able to hear the announcers and just like the whole like how it happened with the post-fight interview with Kayla, like it was almost like chilling, dude. I was almost like I stood up and I was like, yeah, it's happening. Nunes is coming back. She was just like chilling in the crowd, and I wasn't sure if she was gonna get called out. Kayla calls her out immediately and says, "Get in the ring, get in the ring." And the Secret Service is like, we're watching you. And she's like, I can't. And then Joe Rogan's like, bring her in. Bring her in. And the Secret Service is like, oh, Joe? Oh, yeah, bring her in. She's cool. She's cool then. So, Joe, thanks to Joe, we got the face off in the center of the octagon. Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. That's going to be crazy. I will say, I saw some people talking on Twitter already about the odds for that fight. And Kayla Harrison was like minus 150. And I saw a lot of people that I respect in the MMA scene saying that they would back Nunes as a dog. I just got to say, that's going to be so exciting because I could see both sides, right? Has been off. So you like the recency from Kayla Harrison, but obviously Nunes is the GOAT. That's all I have to say about that for now. We'll have to table that discussion for when they actually fight. But besides that, what else happened in UFC 316? Well, let's see. Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland looked great. Kevin Holland was a guy that neither Jose nor I picked, although it was both of our pretty low weight at one. So it wasn't something that we were like heavy on the stake with. But Holland gets the anaconda choke finish on Vicente Luque, and honestly, pretty much decimated him in round one as well. Kevin Holland was winning that fight the entire time, so props to him. Patchy Mix, what a sad debut for Patchy Mix. I thought, and so did Jose, that he was going to have a good debut in the UFC because they didn't quote unquote throw him to the wolves, right? They didn't throw him to Yair like they might have for Patricio Pitbull. They gave him a guy who in ideal situation is beatable, but Batista looked amazing. Like all props to Batista. He won all rounds of that fight as well. Even though I didn't pick him, I had to give it to him. He definitely stood out, and like coming off a fight that I thought was really boring against Jose Aldo, Batista actually like really does like 173 strikes landed. He actually went out there and dominated. So kind of excited to see what he can do next. Last but certainly, of course, not least, Joe Pyfer. Man, that's crazy that he got Jose, you saw that, right? Two knockdowns in the first round on Kelvin Gastelum, and that went to decision. That's crazy. Pyfer was like, and he admitted it in his post-fight interview. You probably didn't get to hear him, Jose. Pyfer admitted it because Joe Rogan even in the interview was like, yeah, man, it seemed like you were kind of, just going for power swings the whole time. And Pyfer was like, yeah, I did exactly what my coaches told me not to do, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I will say, I can respect that he still won the fight. Kevin Gastelum's a really tough guy to beat. But he's just like willingly saying he didn't listen to his coaches. That's going to need to change if Joe Pyfer is going to take the next step in the UFC, in my opinion. And I'll leave it at there. He will not be a UFC champion, especially not in the middleweight division, if he's not going to change and listen to his coaches. It's that simple. He's got to change. He cannot just sit there and look for a power strike. Without that ridiculously powerful round one, and the fact that he made Kelvin Gastelum look like a dwarf because he's just so big for middleweight division. I mean, without those things, Pyfer might have actually lost this fight because Kelvin Gastelum came in and debatably won the third round. It's debatable, but it was still unanimous for Pyfer in any case. So that's pretty much the quick wrap up for at least the main fights, UFC 316. And before we go into our picks for this Saturday, I'll just remind everybody that might be new that we do a five weight pick system here at Moneyline, in which we pick 5 of the currently 13 scheduled fights for UFC Atlanta, and we weigh those picks in order of confidence, with 5 weight being the most confident, 1 weight being the least confident. We make these picks independently, and then right before clicking the live button, we just discuss our weights so that we know what order to go in, since we always start with our locks of the week, aka our 5 weight picks. So that said, for my 5 weight pick, my lock of this Saturday afternoon, I'm going to stay away from one for some reasons we'll discuss. There's one guy that I almost immediately look towards. But instead, I'm going to go against this. This almost really pains me and probably anyone who's more of a longer term UFC fan. But I'm going to say Raoni Barcelos, 5 weight, to beat Cody Garbrandt in the bantamweight division. Oh, man. Like I said, it pains me to say that Cody Garbrandt's the guy I'm most confident to see lose on this Saturday. And Garbrandt is, in his respect, too, not even that big of an underdog. I looking at this fight without looking at the odds, I kind of assumed Barcelos would be a way heavier favorite. Right now, it's looking at plus 138 for Cody Garbrandt and minus 178 for Barcelos. So for me, I'm seeing some value there. I don't get me wrong. I have a lot of respect for Cody Garbrandt, but I just think it's one of those things where he's had his time and that time has passed. I'm not saying he's in his mid 30s, so he's not like old, but he's definitely past his prime. I think most of us can agree on that. He just got finished by Davison Figueiredo, who I'm a big fan of Figueiredo too, but Figueiredo, after doing that, has now lost a couple of fights against Peter Yan and Corey Sandhagen. So Davison Figueiredo is also now very obviously not one of those top guys in the division either. So him beating Cody Garbrandt, especially by decision or submission, excuse me, doesn't look as good. And I get that Cody Garbrandt has such an extensive resume against top guys. He's a title challenger, and he actually was a champ after beating Dominic Cruz and then immediately losing it to DJ Dillashaw back in the day, right? But Cody Garbrandt still sports a negative striking differential. In all these fights, I get it. He's fighting the top end competition, but most guys who were a previous UFC champion and had to fight the same level of competition were able to at least get even or slightly positive. And Cody Garbrandt's just not that, and nor is he a big, strong wrestler either. So, in my opinion, this fight's going to stay standing on the feet. Raoni Barcelos is going to be able to win this fight. He's going to be able to either knock out Cody Garbrandt like finish like TKO style. I don't think he leaves Cody Garbrandt like actually unconscious. I think it would be more of a TKO. He's swinging and Cody Garbrandt's just kind of defending himself, not really returning strikes kind of situation. That's just a prediction, but in the end, I think you get enough value on Barcelos at minus 178 to just bet the money line. But that's my number 5, or AKA my lock of the week for Saturday. Jose, what do you think? Man, one thing I didn't mention either before we move on quick is that I think Hayoni showed, and I'm hoping he's willing to do it going forward for any future fights he has. But Barcelos, specifically against Talbot in his most recent win, which is a win that I favor a lot. I mean, like you said, that's a big win against a guy who had 9 professional wins and 7 knockouts. Right? He goes in there and swings and gets knockouts like they're almost easy to get. And Barcelos took him the distance and won and convinced the judges unanimously that he's the better fighter. Uh, in that process, Barcelos landed 8 takedowns, and a lot of that is probably just him seeing an advantage against Talbot, a guy that doesn't have much wrestling acumen. But I'm just bringing that up to say that neither does Cody Garbrandt. I don't by any means think that's Rione's game plan, but I think as a fallback, if he gets rocked by Cody and he's like, oh man, maybe I'm not winning this as I thought I would. I still think he can fall back on landing a takedown and trying to win around that way. And in that case, I wouldn't be as confident as you in saying that there'll be a finish in this fight. I could definitely see it going to decision. Yes, sir. All right, that's all I had though. So, yeah, size a huge favorite. 560. Yeah, definitely, man. I agree. I have size my four weight, so I didn't dive in with him as my five weight, and that's mainly because he's just not as experienced. I'm a little bit too nervous. Like I feel like with some of these guys that haven't fought as much in the UFC, this will only be his third fight, and this will be by far his biggest step up in Alonzo Menafield. Like this is going from like low end guys that are on the border of getting cut in the UFC to like an established UFC guy that won't get cut win or loss. So Alonzo Menafield to me is just someone who like is the classic like gatekeeper almost situation. The veteran that's like I'm not letting these kids beat me, and Omar Sy is gonna have to come in here and say otherwise. Now I will say Omar Sy looks like he's just gonna have a ridiculous size advantage, which at light heavyweight is already something to say. Like the fact that Omar Sy is listed at least on UFC to be 6'4", 83-inch reach. I mean, that is genuine. That is genuine heavyweight level size. That's crazy. So the fact that he's able to get down to 205 and like based on some of the pictures of him I see, like he's definitely not like super jacked like Cyril Gane style, but like he's a big dude. Like that guy, I would feel like naturally carries power even if he's not trying, and that's going to be a huge advantage. I'm still pretty confident he gets the win. Obviously, he's my four weight, but I'm just giving him that one knockdown because I'm very confident in Hayoni. We're talking about Hayoni in a much more grizzled veteran, a guy that's even older than Cody Garbrandt, versus Omar Sy, who's definitely taken his biggest step up ever. Menafield is coming off a win as well, in which it was a split decision win, sure, but it was also a fight of the night performance bonus. So Alonzo still fought his butt off, and I think he's going to do the same against Sy, and Sy really will need to put his lights out. I think in order to get a definitive win, or it could be another split decision coming to Alonzo Menafield's way, whether it's win or loss. So that said, pretty confident in Sy getting the job done. But as Jose also mentioned, the odds, like that's just such a steep line. I couldn't touch that with a 1,000-yard pole regarding my money, just because that's a guy that does not have enough experience to have to bet that steep on a guy like Alonzo Menafield to lose. Yeah, I'll leave that one up to Jose. Just keep making sure that note is Jose's only. I say zero bets on that fight. That's just me personally, though. I am too risk averse because I would think even at like KO or does like win inside the distance, or even if you go KO, it's probably still going to be like minus 250. That's tough. It better be Derek Lewis if I'm paying that much for a KO, right? You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of funny. But either way, that's it. We shall move on then. And I'll just jump down to my three weight for the next fight that we're just going to discuss. And that will actually take us into the main event. Without further ado, here, three weight main event Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. At first, I thought Kamaru Usman was going to stay up at middleweight. I thought that was good for him. Of course, he did lose to Kamzat, but it's Kamzat. He's obviously Kamzat getting the belt shot coming up here. I'm super excited for that in UFC Chicago. But otherwise, like Kamaru, I think really could have posed a good threat in the middleweight division. I guess maybe he thinks he could be a champ again, and that definitely like bodes well. Like if he wants to be a champ again, he would have to probably stay welterweight. But I think he just gets a couple of good legacy fights in middleweight and calls it a day. But hey, it is what it is. Kamaru's now back to welterweight. He's going to be fighting Joaquin Buckley. That's a tough contract. That's a tough paper to sign if I'm Kamaru Usman, man. Joaquin Buckley is on a six-fight tear. He's starting with the Andre Fialho, Alex Morono, Luke Hay, Nursultan Rozibayev, Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, and of course, most recently, Colby Covington. So the hater would say that most of those guys aren't that good, and I would say, well, maybe they're not amazing like past champions, but Joaquin Buckley's finished a good chunk of them. In fact, four of those six fights were finished by Joaquin Buckley. So it's not like he's skating by with decision wins. Joaquin Buckley is finishing his opponents. Uh, and he has some 5 round experience now. Although in the 5 round fight he had against Colby Covington, it didn't have to get to the 4th or 5th round anyway. But Joaquin Buckley has landed multiple KOs now past round 1. And even 2 of his most recent KOs are in round 3 against Wonderboy and Colby Covington. He finished them in round 3. And what that tells me is a very big thing for someone as big and strong and like as much of a power striker as Joaquin Buckley is that he doesn't just gas out if he doesn't get the first round KO. And that happens with so many guys that are big power strikers. You know, they swing big, they swing for the fences, they might land. It was almost like Joe Pyfer. Like, I hate to say it was almost like Joe Pyfer. He got his, he has the early orgasm in the first round. And he kind of just stood there and did nothing for 10 minutes afterwards. It was like, what are we doing? so yeah. Joaquin Buckley, man, should get the job done. But Kamaru's still a beast. But through weight, Joaquin Buckley. What do you think, Jose?
He finished Vicente Luque, which even though Vicente Luque just recently lost to Kevin Holland, we actually, we were riding high on Vicente Luque. And other than that, like, yeah, dude's a beast. I don't think, like if Kamaru Usman beats Joaquin Buckley, it has to be Usman has to completely utilize top level like wrestling for sure against Joaquin Buckley. That's the best way I can think of it. But if it's gonna come on the feet, Joaquin Buckley, he is an explosive guy, and maybe like maybe because he's going against Kamaru Usman, maybe he'll be a little hesitant to make some decisions. But to be honest, like if I were Joaquin Buckley, the time to be explosive and do crazy creative stuff is now. And I think Kamaru Usman is a great opponent to do all that stuff against just because he doesn't want to be kind of like how Kobe Covington, how Kobe Covington was, and like Jorge Masvidal, where they're just a little slow on their feet, and like how Leon Edwards was most of the fight until he won the first time against Kamaru Usman, where if you fall into Usman's game, you're just not gonna do anything. And Usman's he's kind of known to not have the most exciting fights because his opponents know how dangerous he is, and I think Joaquin Buckley should not be afraid to engage in the wrestling, and it's going to be a lot of wrestling Kamaru Usman's going to have to implement over Joaquin Buckley. But Kamaru Usman has not really been like that for a while, and I just think Joaquin Buckley is going to overall be the stronger, better guy in this one, and just land and piece him up a lot more on the feet. I would love to see Joaquin Buckley actually get a finish on this one, but ultimately I think he's just going to win unanimously. I think he's just ultimately going to outstrike Kamaru Usman in this one. So that being said, I got Joaquin Buckley. As long as he stays calm and creative in this fight, I think he should win it. And if he doesn't fall into any traps of Kamaru Usman in terms of just standing in front of him and then becoming almost a slow punching bag like Kobe Covington did when they fought the second time. Like I think Joaquin Buckley, this is a good fight for him, a good name on his resume, and a good matchup. Like if he fought Kamaru Usman 4 years ago, no way. Oh, Usman all day. But Usman's not the same guy he used to be. And Joaquin Buckley obviously is just on a tear right now. So that being said, I'm riding high on Joaquin Buckley. He is my 4 weight.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, I had to cut my little short as my throat dried up on me. But yeah, man, you really said it. I knew that you had something to say too. So I figured you might as well give your piece. And yeah, pretty much agree fully. Joaquin Buckley, my 3-weight, your 4-weight. So we already discussed Omar Sy being the lock of the week with 9 total confidence points, but Joaquin Buckley was 7, and to me, Joaquin Buckley is the way you would take in terms of betting. I mean, he is still minus 295, and Kamaru Usman plus 220. That's so crazy. Just thinking about like Usman, some people wanted to say that he was one of the goats or the goat potentially at welterweight, and now he's sitting later in his career at plus 220 against a guy who is still an up and coming potential. Like I will say, if Joaquin Buckley lands a finish here, like it's really hard to deny him one of the next title shots. I just gotta say, because like at that point he's got like 8 straight or 7 straight wins. I can name a couple of guys who have gotten title shots just based off of that in the UFC recently. So you might as well pencil Joaquin Buckley in for a lot of motivation here too. He should know that, especially if he can finish Usman, like that's one of the last things you need to do in the road to becoming a UFC champion. Especially considering he's already ranked like in the top 5. So Jack Middle Lane is going to have some guys like Sean Brady probably gets the next chance right now, I would say. Sean Brady's first in line. But after that, give it Sean Brady, JDM. And then after that, I think Joaquin Buckley might be knocking on the door after that. Or you have to do Joaquin Buckley versus Ian Gary. Pretty much one of those 2 options, in my opinion. But
can't forget Shavkat, too. He's in the mix as well.
Yeah, I guess I do forget about Shavkat just because he's been hurt. But whenever Shavkat comes back, you might as well. I consider Shavkat better than Ian Gary. So you might as well pencil that in. Obviously, Ian Gary and Shavkat have fought, so Shavkat already kind of proved that he's better than Ian Gary.
True, yeah. Shavkat versus Joaquin Buckley would actually be a fun one too.
That's what I'm saying.
That would be
Shavkat back from injury. If like I said, I'm not trying to get too far ahead of ourselves, but if Joaquin especially can finish Usman, some sort of technical finish, KO kind of thing, yeah, we got to do Shavkat versus Joaquin Buckley. And then that's like literally like Dana comes out and says that's a contender series, or that's a contender. Like whoever wins that fight gets the next title shot.
100, yeah.
That would be like a good like UFC pay-per-view co-main or something.
Yeah.
Maybe like a feature fight. Maybe a feature fight actually.
Dude, like it's just stack up a card. That I'd be happy with that as the co-main though. That'd be a good co-main. Unless it's a title fight there too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or you make it like the feature fight and then 2 title fights after. That would be even better. That'd be even better, just saying. But either way, that'll be the pick then. We both agree on Joaquin Buckley, and I'll let Jose go on with his 3-weight.
So for my 3-weight, this is a feature bout on the main card. It's the middleweight bout between Edmund Shabazian and Andre Petroski. Right now, Edmund Shabazian, he is a betting favorite at minus 188, while Andre Petroski is a betting underdog at plus 146. You know what? Edmund Shabazian, he's only 27 years old. He's big and very athletic for his age, I should say. And he was kind of like a prodigy coming up. He was under Ronda Rousey, and he's been hit or miss. And I've always, when I've gone against Edmund Shabazian, I've usually been right. Like when he fought Gerald Mearshart, and it's just one of those things where he's when you're getting out of Edmund Shabazian is pure kickboxer, just a phenomenal kickboxer. And his takedown defense isn't necessarily the best, and he has struggled. But that being said, like as long as this fight can stay on the feet, I think that this is Edmund Shabazian's for the taking. So that being said, he is my 3-weight. Andre Petroski, though, on the other hand, he is a wrestler. He does average 3.38 takedowns per fight. So in this one, I think Edmund Shabazian has actually gone against better wrestlers in the past. So I think that he's not he like if Petroski gets him down, it can be some problems and even get submitted as we've seen before, like with Gerald Mearshart. But that's also Gerald Mearshart, and he's come back, and after the Gerald Mearshart loss, he's come back, and again he's won in the first round via TKO. And I think that's the Edmund Shabazian I'm expecting to see come Saturday night is going to be one that he's going to be light on his feet and try to make it end early. Almost all his wins, he's finishing within the first 2 rounds. His last 2 wins were in the first round, and they pushed him and they gave him monsters. You got Derek Brunson, Jack Hermanson, Nasruddin Emavov, and then losing being finished by Anthony Hernandez. Like okay, yes, and then Gerald Mearshart. That was one where we went with Gerald Mearshart, but. I think Gerald Mearshart was also the underdog in that fight, if I recall. So we went with a dog in that one. And this being said, against Petrosky, he is a beast himself, coming off 3 wins. But he's not really submitting dudes, or not really knocking them out. He's just going by decision. So if this fight makes it all the way to the end of the 3 rounds, I think Edmund Shabazian is probably going to be the one to win this and get his hand raised, because he's going to just outscore Andre Petrosky if he doesn't knock him out early on. He's going to outscore him. But if the fight goes on, Edmund Shabazian will probably start to lose the grappling exchanges against Andre Petrosky, and Andre Petrosky will probably land more takedowns in the later second and third rounds. But I think Edmund Shabazian, as long as he can avoid that from Andre Petrosky, I think it's his for the taking. And honestly, like, Edmund Shabazian does start hot a lot of his fights, so I do think that if he finishes Andre Petrosky, I do see it being in the first round or early second. So this one, I got Edmund Shabazian. He's my 3 weight. He is kind of like, for me, hit or miss in this one. It just depends what version of him is going to show up that night. Is he going to be, if Andre Petrosky can dominate the wrestling early on, it's going to be a long night for Edmund Shabazian. But if Edmund Shabazian get going first and not let Andre Petrosky, not give him any shots to shoot, I think Edmund Shabazian will stun Andre Petrosky early and finish him, or if not, win unanimously. So I got Edmund Shabazian as my 3 weight on this one. He's kind of hit or miss. I just maybe he would have been a little lower on my list, but the other two, I'm just like, I think they're just that much riskier, me going with them. So he is my 3 weight on this one. Nick, do you have any thoughts on this fight?
And I feel like I have thoughts on all fights, but like sometimes maybe not as confident, or it's maybe not as abundant either. Maybe it's just one thought. But either way, I don't have an official rating or pick on this fight. To be honest, it was hard for me to come to a final conclusion, and if it's that hard for me to pick a fight, then I'm not going to make it a weight, because there's other fights on the card that I can be more confident in. I see what you're saying. Like, Edmund, to me, is a little more dangerous, 100%. He has a lot more power, at least that he's displayed with his fists and knockouts, and especially more recently than Andre Petrosky. I see that. If Andre is going to win the fight, I see it going to decision more than anything. Like you said, kind of suffocating with the ground game more than anything else. And Shabazian probably just playing get submitted for most case, but still losing the round. So for that reason, I couldn't pick a guy that I was mostly confident on either side. I think they both have their path to victory. And in all reality, if they fought 10 times, it might go 5-5. It might go 6-4. That's my view on it, and I'm not confident enough to make an official pick.
Yeah, fair enough. That being said, yeah, this one, not much more for me to say either. I'm riding with Edmund Shabazian on this one as my 3 weight, and I think he's gonna come in hot and assert more dominance on the feet. If not, Andre Petrosky's definitely just gonna win the wrestling exchanges for sure.
It'd be probably boring, right? It'd be pretty boring that way, but
Yeah,
that's how
going to see my boy, man, lose.
That's how it works sometimes, man. But yes, okay, so that's it. Then I'll take us down to my 2 weight. We got 3 official picks left. My 2-1, Jose's 2, since he put a 1 weight on against my 5 weight, Jaime Barcelos. But in any case, my 2 weight for this coming up Saturday afternoon is going to be on a pretty earlier side of the prelims here. But a guy I'm a really big fan of, and honestly, I think this is a fight that the UFC is underrating, just in the sense of where it's located on this card. I can't believe that this isn't like at least the feature bout of the card, much less the co-main event. I don't mean to dog on the ladies, but this fight to me is way better than what we have for the co-main listed right now. And this is Ricky Simón versus Charles Air Jourdain. This is going to be a dog fight, in my opinion. I know Ricky Simón does average 5 takedowns per 15-minute fight, and that's a lot of heavy wrestling. But in all reality, Simón, part of it is because a lot of his fights don't go to the conclusion. So a lot of his fights don't use up the 15 minutes. So the average goes down because he only fought for 4 minutes and got a takedown, which rose his average up. You know what I'm saying? So in a lot of cases, it's not actually like he's doing chain takedown attempts like Merab or something like that. But even then, Ricky Simón, coming off a good win against Javid Basharat, that's one of the main things I'm looking at here. If it wasn't clear enough already, I am picking Ricky Simón as my 2 weight to beat Charles Air Jourdain. I'm a big fan of both of these guys. Ricky Simón is the minus 186 favorite. Charles Air Jourdain plus 144. Both these dudes are coming off a win. Air Jourdain actually submitted his last opponent, Victor Henry. Ricky Simón knocked out Javid Basharat. And I'm taking Ricky Simón here. I think he's more dangerous overall. I do have a lower weight on this one. Air Jordan has a positive striking differential and Ricky Simone does not. I could see a path in which Charles Air Jordan wins this fight by decision, but the thing is, he only has 2 decision wins and 6 decision losses under his belt. This man doesn't know how to utilize the ability of time when he's winning in a fight. I don't think Charles Air Jordan is going to be winning the fight in slow down by any means. He's gotten knocked out recently by Gene Silva. He went to split decision with Sean Woodson. Those definitely great fighters. But then a little earlier, he lost by decision to Nate Wood. I mean, Shane Burgos, who didn't even do well in the PFL. Like, I don't know. Charles Jourdain, like, seems to, it's one of my last points. He just seems to be a guy that he's just kind of up in the air, like, and pun intended, really, with his nickname. But honestly, like, some nights he's really on it and some he's not. He'll get a submission win, but then he'll lose by decision in one of the most boring fights of all time. He beats Chrome Gracie by decision. Are you kidding me? Knock him out. If you're Charles Jourdain, finish him. So I'm just kind of tired of it. Like, I feel like Charles Jourdain has a lot more potential than Ricky Simone. He doesn't realize it. And Ricky Simone's going to still come in there throwing haymakers. And it's one of those fights that the stats really just don't matter because Ricky Simone's just going to look better. And that's all that matters in the end. So Ricky Simone's my 2-weight. Any thoughts, Jose?
Yeah, Nick. So I did not put a weight on this one, and it was tough for me just because you're right. This was kind of like it's kind of like under the radar, low key type of fight, but it's actually really a banger on paper. And this one, I just could not make a choice to me because Charles Jourdain, he is the dog in his last 2 fights. Losing to Gene Silva and then going getting KO'd by him, understandably so, and then. But going split decision against Sean Woodson is pretty impressive, I think. And then Ricky Simone, he's been pretty hit or miss. He lost 3 in a row, but he lost nothing but to dogs as well. And so this one, it's kind of like a 50-50. I would probably lean Ricky Simone as well, just because I do think he's faced tougher competition for a longer period of time. He beat Marab back in the day in early 2018. It's long gone now, like it's history. But like
Montel.
Montel Jackson, Uriah Faber, Rob Font,
Yeah.
Ray Borg, Brian Kelleher, who went over and became champ over at One Championship. So he's Jack Shore. Like he's really had, I think, he's lived up and beaten tougher competition. Like he just went on this 3-fight losing skid that he went on. Again, like they're dogs, and Mario Batista obviously just beat the former Bellator champ this past weekend. So his stock just went up as well. And that being said, I messed up Brian Gallagher. This is a different Brian Gallagher. I was thinking of Brian Lineker. But that being said, still he's faced tough competition. And so I don't have a weight on it because Jourdain is a dog. This one actually for me would be a hard one to put money on, so I just did not make a pick. But I guess I do lean slightly more towards Ricky Simone just because of the level of competition of his resume. It's just overall his resume. I mean, he's only 32 years old, so he has such a his resume is pretty impressive for honestly how he is still pretty young, 32. And Charles Jourdain is young as well, obviously being 29, obviously younger, and he's got a decent resume as well. I just think Simone's probably going to have the slight edge on this one. So I have no official pick, but I do like the pick of Ricky Simone.
Sounds good, man. I'm with you. That's why it's my 2-weight. Like, I'm a big fan of both these dudes, but I do have a little more confidence, I think, than you in Ricky Simone. Maybe just because I'm a little disappointed in what I've seen out of Air Jourdain as of late, and there's no doubt that like both these dudes have kind of had a little bit of a struggle lately. Especially if you look at Simone's last 4 fights, you're only seeing that most recent win. So either way, it could be more of a toss up than I'd like it to be, but we'll see. I think I got some confidence on Ricky. Just maybe leave it off the betting card. So yeah, we'll let Jose take it away from here.
So the last fight of the night we're going to talk about this comes down to my 2-weight, and this is actually the co-main event, the women's flyweight bout between Rose Namajunas and Miranda Maverick. Right now, Rose is actually a big betting favorite at -290, while Miranda Maverick is a betting underdog at +215. And I say actually, like in terms of, I'm slightly surprised that she's this big of a favorite because, Rose, like She lost to Erin Blanchfield most recently, but she's definitely not the same. Like not the same since she's lost. Since she's lost to Carla Esparza in that split decision. She beat Weili Zhang twice, which is extremely impressive. But then there were some fights where like like you definitely should have won like that Carla Esparza one. She definitely should have won. Even it shouldn't have even been a split to be honest. Like because she's definitely just that much better than Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza just obviously just completely out wrestled and then just comes in and uses unanimous to Furio and then wins a couple again and then loses to Erin Blanchfield. She's just kind of hit or miss, but I still think at the end she has she has the best experience you can get. She's faced the top of the food chain. She faced and beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice when she was in her prime. She lost to Jessica Andrade by the slam, but then came back and avenged it via split decision. And she's shown up and is at times where I didn't expect her to in terms of like no one saw her beating Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice or Weili Zhang twice. So and Miranda Maverick, she's just been on a tear right now. In an impressive kill as well. Her level of competition is just not nearly as good though. I'm not gonna lie. Like Andrea Lee, for example, she beat her unanimous, but Andrea Lee, she's lost 6 in a row. Don't even know if she's still in the UFC. And then most of the people she's beating, I'm not to sound like I don't know like mean or anything. I like or uneducated, but I do watch like these women fight and like they're not really the biggest names to be honest. Like if you look at Rose Namajunas, she definitely has the better names on her resume. And Miranda, the impressive. She won split decision. She lost split decision to Macy Barber back in 2021, but right now Rose Namajunas, she's still somewhat young herself too. I mean, Maverick is younger by being 27. Namajunas is 32, but I think Rose is still in a spot where she should be able to get this win. I think Miranda Maverick, what she offers is just more explosive and power behind her punches, but I think Rose Namajunas offers just experience and technique. So I don't even think like Rose Namajunas will beat Miranda Maverick by anything other than mostly probably the grappling department and submissions. I would think Rose is going to come in and just try to weather the storm of Miranda Maverick and then try to get a submission on her out of her 15 wins. Out of Rose's 13 wins, 5 come by submission. She's only got 2 KOs or TKOs, so or decision. But I honestly think she's probably gonna end up catching Miranda. Miranda's only lost to decision. So if she doesn't submit her, the only other way I see Rose winning is if she doesn't submit her, she obviously is only gonna win by decision. Maverick is just she seems like she's actually a thick girl, to be honest. So I just don't think she's going to be easy to deal with when it comes to her forward pressure and trying to put her out. I just think Rose is going to have to just weather the storm, push forward herself, try to out grapple, and catch her in a slick submission almost. So that being said, I got Rose Namajunas. She is my 2-way. She's low on it just because, again, Miranda Maverick, she basically is going to, I think, offer like that young, like aggressive forward pressure style. And I think, this could be Miranda Maverick's first true humbling, to be honest. Or she's going to live up to expectations and just blow Rose Namajunas out of the stadium. So that being said, I'm going with Rose Namajunas on this one. She is my 2-weight. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
I went with Miranda Maverick 1-weight. I don't really have too much to say. I'm not that excited for the fight, if I'm being honest. Kind of disappointed it's the co-main. I don't know. I think Rose. Look, I think Tracy Cortez is a little overrated. I think Amanda Hebas is a little overrated. I'm not sure Rose has genuinely beaten anyone good since 2021. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm being a little rude, but yeah, I'm gonna need to see Rose back in her 2021 form before I back it and believe that she can do it again. I think Rose has just something's happened. She's more flat-footed. She's just not the same Rose as what she was when she was the champ. And I don't know. Could prove me wrong. I'm with you. That's why Miranda Maverick is my 1-weight, because I'm with you. She does not have that much experience. She's lost to a few fighters that are now doing really well in the UFC, like Blanchfield, Macy Barber, right? But those are losses. Those are a few years ago. Probably don't matter. Hasn't beat anyone good lately either. That's for sure. So can Maverick show out I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that Maverick is going to continue to improve more than Rose will on a fight per fight basis. And I think if we see an evolution of Miranda Maverick, then we will see her beat Rose. So I've got a one weight on her.
Okay, yeah. So this is we differ on this one, but yeah, we both just low confidence. But I agree with you. Not really an exciting fight. You know, Rose has definitely partaken in some boring fights. So shame. Yep. There's a lot of other fights we can think of that should be the co-main event, but you
Here
know,
we are.
this is one. Yeah, just low confidence on. I got Rose. Nick has Miranda Maverick. My two weight is one weight. I think that calls it. That calls the show.
Yeah, yep, that'll do it. So we'll always be back. You know what I'm saying? UFC's bringing some cards back to back. I think we get back to back June. Not back to back. I shouldn't say that, but we get two June pay per views. Is what I'm trying to say. But then there's no pay per view in like September or something like that. There's yeah, I believe September has no pay per views because they're doing so there was a fight that I think that might have been the month they were going to do the Mexican like Noche fight thing that they had to move because of the venue part. So uh, it's a little weird, but it's going to work out. They're not going to have a pay per view in September, but we'll get two in June. Of course, we'll get Kamzat in August, and then in October we'll resume the normal pay per view month schedule for UFC 320, whoever that ends up being. But in any case. Can't get too far ahead of ourselves. Our next card after this fight night looks to be it's going to be Hill versus Roundtree. It's going to be in Arizona. So we're going to get another fight card outside of the Apex. Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree. Great fight. Get our insight on it next week, Monday afternoon. Thanks for listening and have a good week.